from KIRBY Analytics. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you again, Elijah.
All right. Now, basically, you say, we were talking before the interview, and you say that all these things happening in the world right now, nothing adds up when it comes to the geopolitical tensions we're seeing right now, with the tensions in Syria and between Russia and the United States. Basically, the backstory on this, there was a supposed Syrian gas attack. Then the U.S. and its allies retaliated with airstrikes to Syria, and Russia claims that Syrian air defenses shot down over 2/3 of the missiles. Now, what about this doesn't add up?
Well, the evidence that Assad was behind the gas attacks, I would say, is extremely underwhelming to begin with, that he was actually responsible for these gas attacks, or this alleged gas attack. The next thing that I find very amazingly interesting, but it doesn't compute, is that America and Britain and France, acting in tandem, launched allegedly 107 missiles at 3 strategic locations, supposedly strategic locations, in Syria. And I have not heard through any news service of one fatality. And I don't understand how you can launch 107 missiles at strategic locations very close to major metropolitan areas and have no fatalities. It's like you would think out of 107 missiles, one of them might have missed the target or its intended target and maybe landed in a populated neighborhood. Or you would think that if you're actually bombing strategic targets, there might be some people present at these strategic locations to secure and protect them. But like I say, to date, we have not heard of one fatality in what was supposedly this massive show of force. And then, of course, the other point that you brought up is that we have the Syrian/Russians claiming that maybe as many as 70 of these missiles were shot down, and we have American Pentagon spokespeople claiming that every one of them was a direct hit. So we have some conflicting narratives here, and we have reports or lack of reports that are absolutely, at least in my mind, counterintuitive. I don't know how you can launch 107 missiles and have no fatalities. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting point. I didn't even think about that. I read that and I'm like, well, that's a good thing that there were no fatalities. But wait, you're pointing out, how is that even possible? That's a very good point. Now, moving to, the narrative now is like, well, are we getting in war with Russia? What's going to happen? Russia TV, Russian television, was saying to the Russian people, maybe prepare for nuclear war. I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
The amazing thing is, Elijah, I don't know what's going to happen. All I can say is that I'm surprised in that there seems to be undeclared agendas at play here. And I must say, I find it somewhat disheartening that President Trump would be a part of this kind of activity where so many undeclared agendas, at least in my book, seem to be at play. Because it seemed to me that Trump campaigned on, and up until this point in his presidency, he's been absolutely against this kind of activity, and it seems to me that he stood for everything counter to what we're now seeing. Right, it's hard to make heads or tails of this.
Right, but this isn't a change from what Trump has done in the past. I mean, the last time we saw Syrian gas attacks, we then sent airstrikes before, and this is when Trump was president. So it doesn't seem like this is a change from what Trump has already been doing.
Well, one thing that Trump did say is that he would never telegraph what his next move is going to be, or something to that effect. And and from that angle, maybe that's what we're being treated to, and maybe there is a bigger plan here. I mean, I find it somewhat odd that two and a half or 3 weeks ago, Trump was talking about American forces leaving Syria, and then 2 to 2.5 weeks later, he's in Syria. What he said 2.5 weeks ago seems to me to be incongruent with a missile attack on Syria. His most recent actions just don't seem to measure up, at least to me, with everything he campaigned on and seemingly has stood for up until this point. So I must say I am absolutely left scratching my head on a number of fronts in terms of what's up with the president, just as much so as how you can launch 107 missiles and into strategic targets and kill no one. Things don't compute, at least not to me. And maybe it's above my pay grade, but I usually try to, and I'm usually pretty good at connecting dots, and I'm having a lot of difficulty doing so right now.
All right. Well, Rob Kirby, thank you so much for joining us today. Always really interesting having you on and sharing your insights. Before we let you go, did you want to share with the viewers any last thoughts you had and where they can find you online?
Well, my broken record remarks are stay long, tangible, real stuff. At the top of the list, I put physical gold and silver. Be prepared and be informed. And that's kind of sort of my broken record words. And you can catch me on the web at KIRBYanalytics.com.
All right. Once again, thank you so much.